Okay, I genuinely don't understand how we got here. The Birdman makes a 10-minute video pointing out a flaw in Asmongold's logic, and Asmongold responds with nearly an hour of mental gymnastics. An hour. To defend a claim that collapses the second you apply context. And what's crazy is, the longer he talked, the worse it got. Now, before the loyal defenders rush in, this isn't about hating Asmongold, this isn't about politics, and this definitely isn't about clout. If Techno says something dumb, I'll cover it. If Fresh and Fit say something dumb, I'll cover it. If Trio Logic just pearly things, I can go on and on, I will cover it. When someone with a massive platform confidently spreads a half-baked take on a historically explosive topic, I'm gonna talk about it. And that's exactly what happened here. Let's simplify this. Asmongold claimed the average IQ in Somalia is around 68 and framed it as just a fact. He implied people denying it are pushing a narrative that all countries have similar IQ levels.
Zach claims Hassan's tweet is an attempt to push a narrative.
It absolutely is trying to push a narrative. It's trying to push the false narrative that every culture and every group of people has an identical IQ.
On the surface, it sounds like he's just defending data, but here's a problem. He didn't defend context, he didn't defend methodology, he didn't defend environmental variables. He just defended the number, like the number exists in a vacuum. And when you do that with IQ, especially involving a predominantly black nation, you are not entering neutral territory. You're stepping into one of the most historically weaponized conversations in modern history. And pretending you're not is either naive or dishonest. Here's Asmon's biggest strength and his biggest weakness. He sounds confident. He talks like someone who has already won the argument. But confidence is not the same thing as being correct. You can say something slowly, you can say something calmly, you can repeat it's just a fact 5 times. That doesn't make it intellectually complete. IQ scores are heavily influenced by nutrition, early childhood development, access to education, political stability, healthcare, and environmental stress. If you remove those variables from the discussion, you're not discussing intelligence. You're discussing outcome disparities without explaining causes. And that's the exact framework racial determinists have used for decades.
Again, it's all about the approval of women. It has nothing to do with whether somebody's right or not. It's about, are you getting the consensus approval? Notice how his arguments are low IQ? Yeah, because IQ matters. It obviously matters. And anybody that thinks that it doesn't matter is probably low IQ. Okay. All of the European countries have similar IQs. All of the Asian countries have similar IQs. This tracks? Yeah.
Obvious problem with this argument is that
this is an average.
Is huge, and there are over 1 billion people with over 1,000 different ethnic groups.
Whether he intended to or not, that's the issue. Let's make this painfully simple. Take identical twins. Same genetics, same potential. They follow the same workout routine. Now, give one of them performance enhancers. Same DNA, same effort, with a different result. Is the other twin genetically inferior? No. The environment changed the outcome. Now apply that globally. If one child grows up with clean water, a stable infrastructure, structured schooling, safe sleep, healthcare access, and the other grows up in a country facing poverty, instability, limited educational resources, malnutrition, you will see different testing outcomes. That is not genetics proving superiority. That is environment shaping performance. And the fact that this needed to be explained for an hour tells you everything. Another massive flaw is that Asmongold treats averages like identity statements. An average does not define individuals. An average in a struggling nation does not define genetic potential. An average is a snapshot of conditions.
Now, I do think that if you controlled for every variable, here's the reality, right? Is that if you controlled for every single variable and every variable was exactly the same, and you took 1 million people that lived in Somalia and you took 1 million people that lived in China and you judged their IQ, would they both have the same IQ? Everybody knows the answer to this. Everybody knows.
If tomorrow, Somalia had the same infrastructure, funding, healthcare, and educational access as the United States for 50 years, do you honestly believe the outcomes will remain identical? Of course not. Because intelligence testing outcomes are fluid across generations. History has shown that. The Flynn effect alone shows IQ scores rise over time with improved living conditions. So presenting a current average as some immutable biological truth is either careless or agenda feeding. Pick one. Then came the inbreeding argument. This is where it started sounding less like analysis and more like internet anthropology.
There's also a lot of other components to why people have low IQ, and it's not necessarily race. I'm sure that race is a component, but I would say it's probably like a 4th or 5th level component. So the big reason is you've got the big 3, right? 2 of them are like kind of harder to say, and the last one is like a little bit hard. It's a little bit more obvious. Inbreeding is number 1. Do you think that inbreeding is going to lower people's IQ or not? Do you think that a society full of people that are inbreeding are going to have low IQs?
Yes, cousin marriage exists in certain regions. No, it's not unique to Somalia. No, it's not automatically catastrophic. And most importantly, there is no solid consensus proving that this is a defining factor behind national IQ averages in that region. But when you introduce it casually into a discussion about the intelligence in African nations, what message do you think that sends? You might think you're just adding context, but what your audience hears is, see, there's a genetic explanation. And if you don't aggressively clarify environmental dominance in these outcomes, you are feeding a narrative whether you want to or not. And let's not pretend we don't know which narrative that is. When discussions drift towards arguments that mirror the bell curve, alarm bells should go off. That book has been widely criticized for selective research and racial determinism. It's not the same neutral academic text. It's been used for decades to justify hierarchy arguments. So when a massive creator casually echoes similar logic patterns without heavy disclaimers and nuance, it's not harmless. Influence magnifies impact, and the bigger your platform, the more precise you need to be, not less. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. If your chat constantly drifts into racial superiority jokes during these discussions, that's not random. Communities reflect tone. If you constantly wade into controversial territory with half-context takes, you cultivate an audience that thrives on that ambiguity.
In other words, the environment is the most relevant variable in determining one's IQ score.
So why would you want to bring people from the country that have a bad environment to your country? And you can't understand their IQ is so good they have to keep living in mud huts rather than building houses. Exactly. Reason, like, aren't like 80% of these people on welfare in America? It's insane. And then also keep in mind that it's not just systematic, right? Or it's not just environmental, because even like, for example, Somali American families inside of America that have been here for 10 years. They have been in America for 10 years. They still have a much dramatically higher rate of being on welfare than, normal, like I would say, like just average, everyday Americans from the general population.
That doesn't mean Asmongold is secretly some extremist, but it does mean he has a responsibility to shut down deterministic interpretations clearly, not vaguely. Not "you guys are weird," clearly, because ambiguity empowers the worst people in your audience. Now, this isn't about canceling Asmongold. It's about intellectual standards. If you're going to step into one of the most sensitive scientific and historical conversations on the internet, you don't get to half-step it. You don't get to oversimplify it. You don't get to pretend context doesn't matter. Birdman called it out. And instead of tightening the argument, Asmongold stretched it for an hour and exposed the cracks. You can like the guy. You can watch his streams. But pretending this was some flawless just stating facts moment, that's delusion. Big platform equals big responsibility. And this time, he fumbled it. But that's all I got on this. If you have any issues with what I say, leave it in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next one.